Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your continued support to our channel. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you thinking and looking at the Kenyan politics critically still believe that it is going to be very easy for William Ruto to defend his seat for a second term in 2027? I'm asking this sensitive question because if there is something that keeps on bothering Ruto is how to defend his seat. The more I look at it from all angles, the more I'm tempted to come to this conclusion that William Ruto is a one-term president. And the reason I'm saying this is I want us to look at the factors that catapulted William Ruto to power. Number one, I want to tell you this for free. It is not your votes that plunged William Ruto into power. William Ruto's major factor was the international community, to be very precise, United States of America, being supervised by none other than the former US ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman. And you remember how Meg Whitman, after the very controversial process, including the very non-judicial terms that were used by the CJ Koome, wild goose chase, she told us that that was the freest election ever. But when you look at what is happening, the relationship between William Ruto and the US, and to a larger extent the international community, is diminishing and dwindling by the day. It is no longer a hearsay or rumor or any imagination. Over the last 1 month, three things have happened that are really shocking William Ruto. You know that after June last year, when Gen Zs went to the streets, many of them were killed. And William Ruto had thought that this will be water under the bridge. But just 2 weeks ago, BBC came up with a report exposing how the Ruto police and the military ganged up and killed Kenyans within the precincts of parliament. Just the other day, when the president of Finland came to the country, William Ruto was confronted with this very issue. Now, about the same week, we were told that the United Nations Human Rights Council were going to review Kenyans' human rights record, whether they uphold, obey, and respect the human rights. Now, this was happening at a time when there is an expose by BBC, and it tells you what they found out. Now, yesterday, for those who watched my analysis, I told you how US Congress gave a report as they review the relationship between Kenya and the US. And part of that report really captured how William Ruto, through the police, reacted very harshly, meting atrocities and killing Gen Zs. And in that report, they opined that if there is one thing that is going to cost William Ruto his presidency, if he's not careful, is the young generation ahead of 2027. Now, as if that is not enough, ladies and gentlemen, there is this report that is coming from the US Senate. And it is a very harsh report. Right now, they are not using any euphemism about the relationship between William Ruto and US, because they are now telling us that they built William Ruto. They have put much effort and resources to ensure that William Ruto is built. But recently, William Ruto went to China, and they are saying, the US Secretary of State is saying that William Ruto, it was very stunning to see William Ruto walking, holding hands with the Chinese president. And William Ruto pledged allegiance to China. And this has caught their attention. They are now warning that they must review their relationship with William Ruto. I want you to watch this. But one of the key elements that they talked about is that they will no longer focus on personality-centric, but rather they will now focus on building American policies on strong institutions and empowering young and vibrant generation to take over. Those are not my words. I want you to listen and tell me, because if these are the people who built William Samoei Ruto, they are going to break him. America is known for building you when you are loyal, and when you begin to show dissent, they do away with you. Ladies and gentlemen, before you watch this, allow me to request you to like and share our videos. Please subscribe and click the notification bell to allow YouTube to notify you whenever we release a video like this. Kindly listen carefully to the words, because I want us to come and I will show you why William Ruto is facing a very tough hurdle ahead of him. Because 2027, Sioni. Chake Kimotoni.
In President Trump's first term, his administration engaged in talks with Kenya over a potential free trade agreement, a first for sub-Saharan Africa. And now Secretary Rubio and other senior officials have ramped up engagement and confronted threats from al-Shabaab and the Islamic State head-on. But these efforts cannot be siloed. They must be part of a broad strategic effort to protect American interests in Africa while also protecting the U.S. taxpayer's pocketbook. Many African nations maintain troubling ties with China, including key national security partners. Just last month, President Ruto declared that Kenya, a major non-NATO ally, and China are co-architects of a new world order. That's not just alignment to China, it's allegiance. I submit for the record the text of that speech. I'm going to enter it in the record at the conclusion of the hearing that describes this. Relying on leaders who embrace Beijing so openly is an error. It's time to reassess our relationship with Kenya and others who forge tight bonds with China. And it isn't just an embracement of China, but also the, quote, new world order, end quote. Still, there are countries where meaningful engagement is possible, but only with sober judgment and clear-eyed realism. We must stop building U.S. policy in Africa around individual leaders and instead focus on strengthening institutions, expanding private sector ties, and empowering the region's young and dynamic populations. Watching President Ruto with the Chinese holding hands and talking about a new world order is just stunning. After all the work and effort we've put in there, and to see him talking about a new world order, you know, the new world order was constructed by the United States and democracies, capitalist countries that are human rights loving countries, and the new world order that these countries are talking about is being constructed by the autocracies, the outright communists, socialists, people have no respect for human rights. It's stunning to hear countries talk about wanting to join or promote that world order when the world order that was constructed after World War II has served us so really well. Certainly not perfectly, but then again, the world isn't a perfect place, but so much better than what you'd see if the autocrats took over. It's discouraging to hear that, and part of it, I think, is tied to the fact that when we do things in Africa, they seem to be individual-centric instead of a country-centric. We don't focus on institution, we focus on individuals.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all understand that currently, US and China are at war, economic war, and there is a new scramble for Africa. China has overtaken US, and this does not stand well with the Donald Trump administration. You understand that Ruto really enjoyed a very cordial relationship between himself and Joe Biden. But after the Democrats were ousted from power, when Kamala Harris lost, William Ruto knew it was over for him, and Meg Whitman also resigned. And for those who have been following the channel, I told you that after the resignation of Meg Whitman, it was not going to be very easy for William Ruto to hoodwink the whole world the way he's been doing. So in the middle of this tough economic war between America and China, William Ruto went there, and according to the statement, they are saying that William Ruto pledged allegiance. And they're saying that one of the reasons why they are concerned is because China is a non-NATO ally. NATO is simply North Atlantic Treaty Organization, an organization that was formed in 1949, and they have pledged that an aggression to one of them is an aggression to all of them. China is not part of it. They are also saying that China is now part of the New World Order, and they are concerned that China is a communist country, a socialist country, and they described China as a country that does not respect human rights. They are fond of human rights violation. That is what America is saying. Remember, I've told you just the other day, William Ruto's administration was being reviewed in terms of their human rights record. Now, they are aligning themselves to China that America is claiming does not respect human rights. So this tells you, and you see, they have said that many African countries have continued to maintain, they describe it, a troubling relationship, including their key allies, the security key allies. Kenya is one of the very key allies in terms of security within the the sub-Saharan Africa. US has got many military bases, including or even Britain. And they're saying that they have really put a lot of effort and resources. They're saying that these resources that they put must also safeguard the interest of America in Africa, and also taxpayers' money in America. In other words, when they give aids to Africa, and especially to Kenya, they say that is those are taxpayers' money in the US, and therefore they want value for what they invest in. And they don't see William Ruto doing that. William Ruto is now headed to China, and this has really bothered them. Now, they have complained that the New World Order was first introduced by US after the Second World War, and it has continued to serve the global world nicely. Now that China is coming up with another New World Order, they say this is unacceptable because they feel China is part of the other superpower. You know, there's this kind of the first superpower led by America, Britain, Germany, and all that. Then there is this one of Russia, China, Korea. And they feel that if William Ruto is going to embrace this, what is initiated as another New World Order, he's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the repercussions, and why am I telling you that Donald Trump is on his way to sever ties with William Samoei Ruto? Number one, they have said very categorically that they will stop building US policies around individuals. In other words, they will never build presidents like William Samoei Ruto. It was Joe Biden that aided William Ruto to become the president. Now they're saying that they want to break that and take a new paradigm shift, where they are now going to build their policies around independent and strong institutions. For example, if it is Law Society of Kenya, Kenya Human Rights Commission, the judiciary, they want to build those institutions to ensure that William Ruto will be fought and there's nothing he will do. Remember, during Gen Z's protest, William Ruto was accusing Ford Foundation. This is what US is going to do. They will be, empowering and building, making stronger NGOs, because they have realized that individuals can somehow make a U-turn. William Ruto has made a U-turn after the loss of Democrats. So what they will do is that today, if youth will go to the streets once more, the Finance Bill 2025 is coming ahead. If William Ruto will try to kill the youths on the streets, US will come fuming with fury, telling William Ruto, respect human rights. We are not going to allow you to kill innocent people. And that is very possible. If they mean it, they can. In fact, that could be the genesis of even trying to overturn his government. Of course, the way they do it, they will simply sponsor. They can even decide to sponsor Rigathi Gachagua. So they will ensure that they call William Ruto to order. In any case, people go to the street in accordance with the Constitution. Number two, Donald Trump administration can sponsor or support a stronger candidate against William Ruto. They are saying they will build their policy around a vibrant generation, young generation in Africa. knowing very well that Gen Zs went against William Ruto and William Ruto was shaken, and they are now saying that they will build their policies around a strong and vibrant generation. This tells you that they can decide to look at who Gen Zs want. If Gen Zs decide that we want Rigathi Gachagua or Maraga or Matiang'i, that is where they will go. Or they can decide to look for someone who can resonate well with Gen Zs, and they give him a lot of money, a lot of support, international support, and he contests. And I can assure you that without the US support, William Ruto would have not, stole that election. There were election malpractices. And if they do that, they will ensure that William Ruto is defeated, considering, because they know they have their statistics, that William Ruto has lost touch with the majority of Kenyans who voted him in. He has fallen out with his former deputy. He has fallen out with hustlers and mamambogas. Doctors are on the streets every day. So they know that even if they sponsor someone, William Ruto will easily be defeated, and they will not. You see the same way Meg Whitman pitched camp in Bomas to ensure that she safeguarded Ruto's win. They can decide that the new ambassador will pitch camp in Bomas to ensure that votes are not rigged, and they will ensure that there is a stronger power than that of William Samoei Ruto. Number 3, they can decide to increase trade tariffs. You see, they were saying that in the first term of Trump's administration, they had started, some talks around free trade, so that Kenya and US Kenya can export goods without tariffs being levied. They can now stop it or simply ban Kenyan products. It's simple. If we have tea or coffee that we have been exporting to US can look elsewhere. And with that, we lose a lot of revenue. They can also decide to declare certain members of Ruto government persona non grata, travel ban, that they can't go to the US. And the way these people love traveling. Once they do that, Britain will follow. The NATO, let me just talk of the NATO allies will follow. Once they issue trade ban, Britain and all those countries will follow. And this will be very injurious to Ruto administration. They can stop foreign aid. They can stop foreign aid to Kenya in terms of, I know that Donald Trump had stopped the US aid, the medicine that was coming to us, but we still gain a lot in terms of foreign aid. They can stop that. With a corrupt government such as ours, where leaders take taxpayers' money, we don't have facilities in the hospital. If this happens, we are doomed. And this will only mean that the Kenyan population will rise up against the president. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer secret. They have made it very clear that William Ruto keeps on making mistakes that they don't understand. Immediately, William Ruto went to China and declared support and allegiance to China. He was abusing the privilege that was given by the US. If I make you, I can break you. That is the message they have given to William Samoei Ruto. That's why I started by asking you, do you still strongly believe that William Ruto is going to win 2027? To me, if you ask me, it is a done deal. William Ruto is a one-term president, not unless he changes. That's my take.